wild ride right now. I've been at this for a long time. First bought gold back in 1978 when it was around $180, $163 an ounce, I forget. Never have I seen it take off like this. It's the great concern, economically and geopolitically. Too many wild cards. And where it goes, nobody knows. But as we see it, it's only going to get much worse.
Gold surged beyond $3,200 on Friday as growing tensions between the U.S. and China, combined with the weakening dollar, reignited fears of a global recession and sent investors rushing towards safe haven assets. Spot gold jumped 2% to $3,236 an ounce, after earlier reaching a new record high of $3,243.82. U.S. gold futures climbed 2.4% to settle at $3,253.20. This week alone, gold is up more than 6%, reinforcing its position as the go-to refuge in the midst of geopolitical and economic turmoil. According to Nitesh Shah, a commodity strategist at WisdomTree, the drop in the dollar and the sell-off in U.S. Treasuries reflect waning confidence in the United States as a reliable global trading partner, especially in light of Trump's aggressive trade actions. On Friday, China responded by hiking tariffs on U.S. imports to 125%, intensifying the standoff between the two largest economies. The weaker dollar made gold more accessible to international buyers, further boosting demand. In addition to trade tensions, factors such as ongoing central bank purchases, increased inflows into gold-backed ETFs, geopolitical instability, and expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts have all fueled gold's momentum throughout the year. March producer prices in the U.S. unexpectedly fell by 0.4%. But analysts anticipate that rising import tariffs could push inflation higher in the months ahead. Markets are now pricing in the likelihood of the Fed resuming rate cuts by June, with around 90 basis points in reductions expected by the end of 2025. Metals trader Tae Wong noted that, while a brief pullback in gold wouldn't be surprising, the broader trend appears solidly upward, especially as inflation data like CPI and PPI give the Fed more room to ease, keeping pressure on the dollar. Elsewhere in the metals market, silver jumped 2.7% to $325 an ounce. Platinum rose 0.2% to $93,980, and palladium edged up 0.6% to $191.50.
It's down today at 79,000 range. Here's the deal, man. And again, it's a wild card. We've been bullish on Bitcoin since 2017. So a lot of people a lot bullish that before us, but we're just saying when we did it, we tell you we don't bullshit. And we've been very bullish on Bitcoin. But now gold is outshining Bitcoin. But with the crypto club in the Trump administration, you don't know where this thing's going to go. And Brent crude was down today almost 3% at $63 a barrel for Brent crude, which means that that's going to bring down gas prices, and that's going to be positive for Trump in terms of the tariffs. And again, I want to bring manufacturing back to America. That slimeball Bill Clinton gave us NAFTA, taking it out, bringing it to cheap labor, and brought China into the World Trade Organization. And again, we're on a wild ride. Wild, wild ride. Been at this a lot of years. Never seen anything like this one before. Stocks fell on Thursday, giving back some of their gains from historic rally seen in the previous session after President Donald Trump announced a 90-day reprieve on some of his, quote, reciprocal tariffs. This is the words from CNBC. Investors worry that even with the slowest pause of some of the duties, economic activity will be slowed by Trump singling out China with a much higher rate. He's put 145% tariff now on China. It keeps going up day after day after day. So the S&P down 3.46%. NASDAQ down 4.31%. The Dow dropped over 1,000 points. And the Magnificent Seven ain't shining today. You had Apple and Tesla down 4.2% and 7.3% respectively. NVIDIA lost nearly 6%. Yep. And Meta fell almost 7%. Again, cumulative tariff rate on China, 145%. And they say that this consists of a new 125% duty on goods on top of the 20% rate levied in response to the fentanyl crisis. He's putting the tariffs on it. Again, I agree with tariffs if you don't have income tax. And I want to tax the rich for what did Buffett say? That he pays more, his secretary pays a higher tax rate than he does? Yes, let's bring the 90% tariff tax rate back to the billionaires and multimillionaires. There were no billionaires back then when they had a 90% rate in the 1950s.
Gold also set a new record on Thursday, climbing as much as 3% to an intraday peak of $3,193 per ounce, driven by the dollar's continued decline and escalating U.S.-China trade friction. That surge came just as the White House confirmed that recently raised tariffs on Chinese goods are now 145%, not the 125% previously assumed. This followed Trump's move to pause reciprocal tariffs on most U.S. trade partners while increasing pressure on China. Michael Brown of Pepperstone described this unpredictable policy environment as chaotic, adding that the randomness itself may keep the bullish case for gold intact. With gold futures already up over 20% year to date and repeatedly breaking new highs, traders are closely watching how the Fed responds to the uncertainty. The combination of policy instability, global risks, and potential Fed action continues to support gold's rally.
Record share credit card accounts descend into debt as stock market had a good day yesterday. They look at this from Market Watch. It goes on to say that the fourth quarter, 11.12% of credit card accounts were making the minimum payment, up from 10.87%, and you have an interest rate of over 20%. That's disgusting. Hey, if the Goldman Sachs were Italian, they'd call them a mafia. Want to show you the reality of what's going on. And by the way, in this week's Trends Journal, Spotlight, whole section on Trump's tariffs before he made the reversal yesterday. But this is a headline from Wednesday's New York Times, just to show you the reality that you don't know what the hell is going on. Nobody does. Brushing off concerns, Trump pushes forward with his steep tariffs. Oh, he brushed off concerns. That was Tuesday. Brushed off concerns. Nobody's going to stop me. He said, I'm doing this. Facts are all there. And what he said. That was Tuesday. Wednesday, so Thursday's paper, Trump backtracks, pauses many tariffs. What are one of your wild cards, one of your top trends this year? Wild card and Trump card. And we said the Trump card's going to play the wild card. And the wild card is the Joker's wild. So we don't know. The wild cards are being played. I've been at this for 45 years. I never had a wild card. Never, ever. But I knew it would happen this year. Trump backtracks, pauses many tariffs. And what happens? Stocks roar back, climbing 9.5%. There's nothing like this. The NASDAQ went up 12%. So the highest jump since the dot-com era. And today they're down. So going back to Trump, I mentioned that I had lunch with his brother, Robert. back in 2017 over in Wassaic, which is across the river from Kingston, east of here. And he went on to tell me that when the father died, I think it was the father died in 2002, he left them over $500 million. So Trump is nothing more than a spoiled daddy's boy. And this is from Abigail Disney, and niece of Walt Disney. And this is an article, you can look it up. Came in The Guardian. Trump, is her quote, is an inheritor. He never acknowledges it, but he wouldn't have been able to do anything of the things he did without an inheritance. He absorbed the lessons of inheriting money almost unfiltered. You have this money because you're special. If you read about his childhood, it's like the textbook worst way to raise a person. You know, he was very violent. He was a bully, and he was rewarded for that, even as a very small child. And more money he had, the more he exhibited these bad qualities. And the more people told him he was wonderful. This is from the Disney era. So I got to comment her. She does some great things in peace and other things.
Meanwhile, Gerald Celente, who was bearish on gold just 2 weeks ago, has now flipped bullish, citing current conditions as a strong driver for higher prices. So what do you think? Can gold sustain this momentum and hit $3,000 again this month? Or are more hurdles ahead? Will central banks keep stockpiling gold while the dollar slides? Drop your predictions in the comments and let's see where this goes. Be sure to check out the next video. It lines up perfectly with everything we've covered. See you there.